today's news.
Hello and welcome to Old News. It's coming up to Christmas and we had a look at Christmas lights last week. I was trying to think of something different and I was listening about the three wise men with someone singing a carol and I thought gold, frankincense and myrrh, and I came across this, gold fever. Something a little bit different perhaps. Gold fever on the Isle of Man? Well, of course, the redoubtable Terry Kringle is there to tell us more in his illustrated Manx history. Here is the news. 1853 is the year. For the last few years or so, says Terry, the island's seen a wave of emigration similar to the exodus from the parishes that occurred in the 1820s. There is perhaps a difference in character. This time, the whole enterprise fueled by the lure of gold, rather than by the hope, some would say, certainty of finding cheap land. The discovery of the precious metal in 1848 in California and in 1851 in Australia has tempted many hundreds of our young men to seek their fortunes on the other side of the world. And once again, our parishes, especially in the north, have suffered a corresponding decline in their populations. The journey to either El Dorado is a long, arduous and full of danger. California, a journey of some 3,000 miles, overland through deserts, over mountains, past bloodthirsty Red Indians, or terrifying sea voyage around Cape Horn with its mountains and seas to the port of San Francisco. In one sense, the route to Australia is better known. For many years it has been to unfortunate felons, quite literally a lifetime away. Many on the island will recall that some years ago a William Quayle was sentenced to 7 years' transportation to New South Wales for stealing a tablecloth. Yes, a tablecloth. Those were the days. Yet, Terry goes on, the rewards are great, or they are great for the lucky few, and perhaps substantial for many more. Recent correspondence received on the island from some who left to seek their fortune bear this out. The same John Sale, writing home from the Bendigo gold diggings in January of this year, 1853 I remind you, states he had made more money in the last 6 months than in a great many years back home on the Isle of Man. Mind you, he went on to say that you had to use the pick and spade pretty freely. However, he did say that most of the Manx he knew out there were doing pretty well, and many were establishing a fine reputation as miners, rivalling even the Cornishmen. There can be no doubt it was this sense of adventure and the prospect of making a fortune in double-quick time that fired the emigration of the 37 Manxmen, all but 2 of whom were from the west of the island, who sailed from Peel on January the 26th of 1853 in the Vixen. Peel was full on the day. The schools were closed. They were given a holiday. Peel Hill was lined with spectators as at 3 o'clock in the afternoon the 2-masted schooner made her way down the harbour with the heroes on board. Thomas Cubban of Glenmay, the captain. Thomas Corlett of Dorby, first mate and navigator. And not another Thomas, but a John Gordon of Peel, second mate. The Vixen, a Peel ship of 160 tons burden, built at the Graveyard on the quay in 1851 at a cost of, have a guess, £2,000. She spent a year coasting and in the Mediterranean trade before she was picked up by the men. She's a well-tried and trusted ship, speedy and seaworthy. Those who had been present at her launching remember she'd been christened by the now customary breaking of a bottle of wine on her stem. And then she had a second christening of the kind the Viking used when launching a war galley, that of reddening the keel with the blood of a human victim. Doesn't bear thinking about, does it? That was in October of 1852, when poor old Tommy Buttons, as Tom Welch the peddler was called, paid a visit to the Vixen one pitch-dark night and fell overboard. Next morning he was found in the harbour with the keel of the ship lying across his back. But tragedy forgotten as the cheers rang across the harbour this day, and the booming voice of Mr. Caruso, the harbour master, could be heard giving instructions. The Vixen soon out into the bay, and with the lucky wind blowing down the channel from the northeast, soon rounded Horse Point and headed southwest. It must be said there were many sad faces, perhaps some even envious ones, as the vixen disappeared from view. But the saddest sound came from some lads who had round the hill and blew a mournful note from a gigantic bucky shell. By all accounts, she's well provisioned with over 5,000 pounds of meat, salted away with plenty of oatmeal to make porridge as a welcome change. Salt, meat and porridge, that's a diet for 7 or 8 weeks, isn't it? They have guns and pistols with ammunition to defend themselves should the need arise. Also on board, carts and harness for the trek to the gold mines. And so the adventurers left with the good wishes of the whole Isle of Man. No doubt it will be many months, says Terry, before the news is received from Australia, over 15,000 miles away by sea. Let us hope it is good news. For some it might have been. For others, I suspect, it wasn't. Gold fever. Not frankincense or myrrh, but it just tickled my fancy for this little pre-Christmas old news. Old gold, new gold, still excites lust in man and greed, perhaps, who knows. Like so many of these stories, it's old news, of course. A very happy Christmas, and I will see you next week. Cheerio.
You're gonna be yesterday's news.